Jesus takes dirt and spit in order to make mud to heal the blind man in John 9. He doesn't have to do that. And there are plenty of places where he simply speaks and people are healed. But he, in whom all of creation, is made, and he who was born of the flesh of Mary and who remembers that we are made of dust, delights to use, dirt. He uses his own spit to touch the eyes of the blind man in Mark 9, and uses spit again on the tongue of the deaf in Mark 7. All these very sensory things, all throughout the Gospel of John, all the signs are aesthetic, experiences. The water to wine, and the walking on water, and the feeding of the 5,000. All that is very sensory rich. Not because, again, we're not smart enough or spiritual enough to get it just by a word. I mean, he could have thought, if you want, of course, you can think anything to being. He doesn't have to be present physically for things to happen, right? But it delights him to use the physical world because he blessed it in the very beginning. I see that all throughout his ministry, and it leads me to conclude, yes, he cares about aesthetic things. And we're not graduating from aesthetic things. We're not graduating to this sort of disembodied heavenly place. Our true destination is the new creation, where once again, we will be immersed in an aesthetic world that will be freed from the stain and warping force of sin. And right now, between those two eras, we get to trust that God delights to use aesthetic things to help us to know and love him, and help us to know and love our neighbors, and help us to know and love ourselves, because we're supposed to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. Creation is our home, and new creation will be our eventual home, and it will be physical and material. And you see all throughout the Old Testament, all throughout the New Testament, how God delights to use physical, material things. So much so that he decides to become it, and not sort of it. The language from John 1 is sarx from the Greek, which is flesh, and soma is the other word that is used elsewhere, which is body. But he becomes fleshy flesh, like as fleshy flesh as you can get, and it is his delight that we encounter, certainly in his ministry, that people encounter God, very God, true God, light of light, true God from true God, in the person of Jesus, in his own flesh, and he feels so much utter delight in it that he rises from the dead in this resurrected flesh, and everybody wants a piece of it, and he says, "Go for it, touch me and see. I am not a ghost." And then later, obviously in First John, that which we have seen, heard, touched, tasted, this we present. That's the life. And so, the arts are very physical things, and as physical things, as material things, they like participate in the ground of this graced physical world that God has made, and so it's like they're downstream from what is like most primary, which is the physical world. The created world is already graced, already capacitated, already blessed to be something through which we would know and love God, and we see that in the Lord's Supper. Every time you take it, you'll have some sense of encountering him.